Hello, my name is Kevin, and I'm going to talk to you about ALS. What is ALS? Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or more commonly referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease. I'm not a medical professional. It is March 25th of 2012. On November 18th of 2011, I was diagnosed with ALS. And it took about a year to diagnose. ALS is a neurodegenerative disease where nerve endings in the brain and spinal column are effectively killed, or they die off and do not regenerate. I believe they typically die and regenerate all the time, but for some reason in ALS patients the regeneration process is affected and they do not regenerate. Now, the effect of that on the body is that the nerve endings are responsible for transmitting the electrical energy from the brain and or spinal column to the muscle to tell the muscle to contract. So if I want to move my arm, my brain will tell my bicep muscle, in this case, to contract and lift my arm. In the case of ALS patients, some, and on a progressive level, some of those nerve endings stop firing. They're not there anymore. If the nerve ending cannot fire, the muscle cannot contract. If the muscle cannot contract, the muscle cannot be used. And if the muscle cannot be used, the muscle eventually withers away and atrophies, in medical jargon. And so let's assume for a moment that it took about a year to diagnose this illness, and now it's been another 4 months since it was diagnosed. So I have had ALS for approximately a year and a quarter to a year and a half. And I think the best way to illustrate the effect right now is to look at my hand. If you look at my hand, this muscle in particular right here is probably the most graphic illustration of what has occurred. I used to have extremely strong hands. I used to work my hands out all the time with my little squeezy ball and other hand exercises, and I had pretty strong hands. This muscle in particular used to be an upward arc here, and very strong ability to squeeze things and grasp things. Anyway, at this point, this muscle is pretty much gone. Ironically, I can still move it, but there is no strength here. To grab something and pick it up now requires an extra effort, and I have to sort of slide the thumb onto something and stretch it over before I can pick something up. So what's happened here is some of the muscle fibers, and there are a lot of muscle fibers in our bodies, are sort of going in all directions and twisting around, etc. Well, some of those muscle fibers are not firing anymore, and those muscles atrophy and die away. But some of the muscle fibers that are in here still are firing. Now, over time, what happens in an ALS patient, and by the way, ALS is another strange disease for another reason, is there's tremendous inconsistency in how the disease progresses through people, and what is affected and what is not affected. In my particular case so far, my muscle strength has been affected dramatically. It's difficult for me to get up and down. It's very, very difficult to walk now. I cannot jog. I cannot run. I have difficulty with balance, and it's not like inner ear balance. It's like my muscles do not adjust properly. If I lose my balance, the muscles that would normally move my leg over to adjust just don't seem to be functioning very well. So I am having ongoing and diminishing muscle strength. And in a lot of ALS patients, it affects the ability to breathe, and it affects your ability to swallow. And unfortunately for me, recently I've had some issues with my breathing, my chest, and with my throat, just in the last few weeks actually. I'm hopeful that things will turn around. Another interesting little fact about ALS is that a very high percentage of the ALS patients are male. I think over 60%, and Caucasian primarily. Something like 90% or more of the cases are Caucasian. So that's very interesting. In addition, at any one point in time, there's an estimated 30,000 people in the United States with ALS, which in a population of approximately 310 million people is a blip on the radar screen. It is something like 0.0001% of the population. So there's not a lot of people with this illness. So generally speaking, ALS is an illness that occurs. Medical science does not know why it happens, does not know what causes it, and so far, unfortunately, has really come up with no way to treat it or cure it. So unfortunately, it is typically a terminal illness. There have been some cases of remission that tend to be either spiritual in nature, well, actually one way or the other, whether it is holistic in nature or some kind of a spontaneous healing in nature. These things do tend to occur, so I'm very hopeful that something like that might occur. Anyway, that's kind of the basics in a non-medical sense of ALS and what it is and how it has affected me, just briefly. So, hope it helps.